Individuality is very largely personal, and the more we have of it, the more dangerous it comes to be. So when we find that we avoid a responsibility, or we try to take on a debt that we cannot afford, or we say something sharp and unpleasant to a friend or neighbor, or we find no time to take care of children because of our own interests, we should take each of the decisions that we make and follow it along the line of Kant's categorical imperative, which is an excellent way of estimating ourselves. When we make a decision, or when we choose to do a certain thing, in the face of choices, we can say to ourselves, if everyone in the world made a decision like mine at this moment, would it be fair, honorable, and constructive to everything that lives? Would I want, in other words, to live in a world ruled over by the decision I'm making on this particular occasion? Would it be fair? Would it be happy for others as well as myself? If I have decided that I don't have time to fulfill a moral responsibility, would my world be happy if nobody had time to do it? Or is it something that others should have time for, but I have other interests? This categorical imperative is very, very useful in self-determinations because it indicates the danger of the generalization of a particular. Now, if we overspend ourselves, are we doing that which is according to the best good of our own inner lives and the best good of our society? Or in the effort to overspend ourselves, do we demand more raises of pay and things of this type until inflation moves in and destroys it all? We either have to live according to principles or die for lack of them. And this point is becoming more and more obvious in our daily thinking. So if we say, I want something, can we justify this want in terms of a great good to something besides the fulfillment of our own desires? Now, when it comes to such habits as narcotics and alcoholism, we have other examples to consider. There is no possible way in which the average individual can justify becoming an alcoholic. But it is something he feels that he wants to do at the moment, and it largely involved in shirking responsibility or trying to return to infancy. This type of ailment can destroy the body, and will do so if we do not correct it. But when we destroy the body in this case, we perform a sin against the spirit, which is in that body, and which is there to help that body and that person to fulfill its place in life. Alcoholism is a dead end for millions of units of energy. It is an end in which the divine purpose of life itself simply fades out because of the destruction of the physical instrument in which it must function. The only answer then is reincarnation, another body, and also an uncorrected weakness which could well be transferred into the future. So we have to try to prevent this energy, which is the divine power in us, from being so blocked that it results in a world in which there is nothing but sin, crime, and corruption. Everything has to be based upon the use of this energy. Now, if this energy was simply an electrical power that you could put a quarter in the meter and do what you want to with it, it would be different. But this energy is not that kind of an energy. It is what the Greeks call a moral energy. Every use of this energy is a responsibility. This divine power is not for free. You cannot buy it. You must become a useful instrument for it. But it is not something that is yours simply because you're born, and you can do with it as you please. If you take this attitude, you will find very little happiness or comfort in life. you will find yourself drifting further and further into complexities that become so burdensome that you begin to look forward to death as a hope of release. Now, because this energy has a lawful structure, because the soul power in man, or the spirit, or the being in man, whatever you want to refer to it, is a life with a code of conduct. Its use is built in. Its purposes are controlled by a law of absolute integrity. Every part of the function of the pure life itself is reasonable, is proper, and is inevitably right. But whenever this power comes into conflict with self-will, then we are reminded of the ancient statement in the Talmud about the self-will. And it is said that that was what destroyed the prehistoric world, and that because of self-will, so fell the angels. The revolt against heaven is the revolt against the proper use of the life principle within yourself. It is the actual revolt against truth, revolt against wisdom, against love, against service, against everything that makes things important. And if this rebellion is carried far enough, the individual simply uses, wrongly or not at all, the energy resources that he has. He therefore gradually passes out of this life without having learned its lessons, and not having found any of the joys that come from integrity and dedication. So in this particular instance, we have to take it for granted that there must be some way in which this life in us can tell its story. And probably the ancient mystics, the theologians of the remote past, who gave us the great religions of the world, brought from the inner life of themselves, or from space itself, something like the Decalogue of Moses that was given by the finger of God in the clouds of Sinai. There have been revelations by means of which the individual has been given the key to his own salvation. We find it in the Ten Commandments, we find it in the teachings of Jesus, in Buddha, Zoroaster, Hermes, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Pythagoras. All of these great people who were the real teachers of mankind pointed out this inevitable truth that as we are able to control the false pressures of ourselves, we return again to friendship with the divine. We find our own unity with reality by consciously rising above unreality and illusion. Actually, therefore, the problem of getting at this inner core of things is probably through a meditational process. But the meditational process is not valuable unless it is supported by a definite, honorable, conscious dedication. A meditation that does not alter conduct is an illusion. The individual who loves God but does not love his fellow man is getting nowhere, regardless of all the platitudes he may think up or all the defenses he may construct for his own action. The law works in a certain way. The law says there are no enemies in my level of consciousness. Therefore, it is not tolerable in the embodied being. Everything that is part of the eternity in us is completely controlled and mathematically structured in an integrity that is incorruptible. So it is not what the law can do to please us, but what we must do in order to keep faith with the law. This is the important consideration. Actually, today, confusion and sorrows and miseries are making deep inroads into our personal attitudes. Probably for the first time in many persons' lifetime, thoughts concerning integrities are coming into focus. We are beginning to realize that something is wrong. And we are also beginning to realize that prayers without works are not going to remedy the situation. And also that all the materialistic compromises that we ever make, industrially, economically, or militarily, will never solve the problem. There can never be a war that will bring peace. There never can be a world materialistic civilization that can bring security or happiness to the people of the world. All things finally decide in shifting, or result from shifting, the level of leadership from the materialistic factors that we now more or less are slave to, and restoring our allegiance to that which is without fault or blemish, that which is the integrity of things. In other words, man must find ways of restoring the golden age of integrity in his own world. And that means that he must follow the leadership of life and not the leadership of death. He must gradually and inevitably weed out his own mistakes. Now, we might say that should be a legislation to do this, that they should pass a law and make it obligatory. Unfortunately, this type of law will not be passed because those who most need it are most afraid of it. They are not concerned with making it work. They would be very unhappy if they found that it did work. Because if selfishness can be proven to be a complete failure, we might have a better kind of world to live in. It has proved that it is a failure, but a lot of people are clinging to the hope that they are going to be exceptions to the general condition, that they can do as they please and all will be well, but other people cannot. So here we have the problem that we must shift our allegiance. Now, theology attempted to do this, but unfortunately theology also settled back onto the level of the mind and the personal claims of people. This type of law will not be passed because those who most need it are most afraid of it. They are not concerned with making it work. They would be very unhappy if they found that it did work. Because if selfishness can be proven to be a complete failure, we might have a better kind of world to live in. It has proved that it is a failure, but a lot of people are clinging to the hope that they are going to be exceptions to the general condition, that they can do as they please and all will be well, but other people cannot. So here we have the problem that we must shift our allegiance. Now, theology attempted to do this, but unfortunately theology also settled back onto the level of the mind and the personal claims of people. What should have been the service of deity became a hierarchy on the theological level, which very largely developed ambitions and power complexes and mistook physical wealth for spiritual integrity. Thus, the theological system didn't work well. But it is true, finally, that this universe is a theocracy. But it is a theocracy in which the supreme power is vested not in a regent, but in the law or truth itself. There is a law that holds atoms together. There is a law that perpetuates the species. There is a law that gives us food and air. There is a law that brings moral life into our families. These rules are the basis of human relationships. When they are obeyed, problems are solved. When they are avoided or corrupted or compromised, problems increase. So sit down sometime by yourself when you want to do something, when you want to say something, for any act of importance that you make, and try to find out the level from which it comes. See if you can find in your own actions levels of causation that you cannot explain. This may be the very key to the whole matter. If you know where it came from, you may still be in trouble. But if you reach that point where you know something must be done, but you do not know why, but the determination to do it is the greatest, and represents the highest concept of conviction, of integrity that you possess. You're moving in the right direction. So it becomes very important to weed out ulterior motives